I am kind of in my feelings about Black History Month, so I'm going to talk about black things a little bit. I also should say that I majored in religion, and that is a way that I think about the world. So that's the language that I use. So for those of you who are For those of you who are agnostic or atheists, trust me, I'm with you, I understand. This is my framework for how I view the world. I was raised as a Roman Catholic, but my mother went to a New Thought church. And the woman who headed the church was this woman, Johnny Coleman. And this is the framework for how I'm going to talk to you. It's finding your code in what I would say in 3 short stories. So I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and my mother, though, went to what is called a New Thought church, and this was the minister. I always think it's funny that when I think of Catholicism, I'm like, oh, I grew up in Chicago, where my nuns and priests were climbing barricades and protesting nuclear war and stuff like that. So that's the idea of the Roman Catholic Church. And then the idea of the black church that's a black preacher in my brain. So I look at the world, I think, a little differently from where I was born. And one of the things that Johnny Coleman said, which I always remembered, which is in every man's heart, God placed a dream. In every one of us, and it's, that's Platonic, that it's an idea that that we're not going to go find the thing out there in the world. We're not going to go find who we should be in the world. That it's really, we're going to uncover it, that we have it. It's sort of innate. That dream, which is what do you want to do, how you want to live your life, all those things are a part of who you are. And when we think about ethics, there is this idea that maybe I'll go and I'll sign up or I'll go to this meeting and I'll hear what the committee says about what our ethics should be, or that, oh, there's a new ethics handbook, let me go see what this is. And now, yes, we do that. That's important to read it. But it's really, I think, important to understand that ethics aren't something that a committee makes. They're not, it's not a pamphlet. It is, and as Johnny Coleman would have said, it's about listening to the still small voice within you that tells you what to do. It is not separate from what you do. It is the reason you do what you do. Ethics isn't, how I do things, because I think we get bogged down, journalists often get bogged down in, well, if this happens and this happens, well, what if this guy gives you this and, he says this? That's not what it's about. It's about why you're doing it. And when you're faced with ethical issues as a journalist, as a person, the why, why do I do this job? Why am I doing this job? I can answer that question very easily. So the idea is finding your code in 3 short stories. And I really believe that Johnny Coleman and this next man are related because this is from The Wire. For my friend Karen is in the back. She doesn't watch The Wire. This clip, 2 episodes, she says. This is going to be my attempt to get Karen to watch The Wire. Let me play this clip for you.
Remember this, yo? Not in my case.
Them boys working the case ain't really in the mood to listen. As you can see, I still got the lady lawyer marker. And if I recall, Police gun got found a while back.
The only reason I'm even here is because of that gun. As far as Eileen Nathan goes, she promised to get out of jail free on a small felony or two. This here is a taxpayer murder with an eyeball witness.
The eyeball witness is lying, yo. Come on now, when you ever know me to put my gun on anybody that wasn't in the gang?
Oh, my.
Old face Andre lying on me here.
Well, the store owner. Now, why would he lie?
Andre working a package out the store. Folk like that, they tend to bear a certain resentment toward folk like me.
If you didn't do this when you did others. Shit, I got files on 2 open doubles last year. Shotgun shells at both scenes. What about that Stash House gunfight? What about Stringer Bell and his muscle dead in the warehouse? If this one ain't on you, another dozen probably are. And if this one goes to court, you can tell that jury how wrong it is.
I'll be seeing God long before I swear to him on the stand. You leave me at courtside and I'm done. You know that.
Yeah? So you ain't making friends?
I got a bounty on my head, man. 5 figures. If I'd have known I was gonna be sharing quotas with all these boys, I probably wouldn't have robbed so many of them.
Oh, yeah. That golden rule.
Since you feeling all biblical and righteous and all, you think on this. Now, if Omar ain't killed that delivery lady, somebody else did. But you giving him a free walk right now, though, ain't you? A man got to have a code.
Now, of course, I used a mass murdering psychopath to explain to you the importance of having a code. But I think it's important that even this person who is that morally compromised understands that you have to have a framework for how you do things. For me, that framework and finding that framework was difficult because I didn't understand what my code should be. And this is what, when young interns come up to me, it's an irritant because it's like, no, it's because they're like, I can help you figure out how to get a job at NPR, right? That's easy. That's not easy, but I can tell you how to do that. I can tell you how to get in public radio. I can't tell you how to find out what you want to do. You have to find that for yourself. I can't tell you if this is going to be the right choice or those things. And like many people, I was very lost. I didn't realize that you're supposed to be a journalist. When people talked about why is it important to say, the first black executive of so-and-so, it's because when I was a kid, there were very, very few black anythings. And so when you looked at stuff, you looked at a guy, and if he did what you did, you could relate to it. You could relate to those people. I remember me and my friend, I grew up in Chicago, and John Johnson, who was the founder of Ebony Magazine, was all we could think about. Like, that dude was like, me and my friend Anton, we had a magazine, we had a company, Glenn Seals Incorporated. I was Glenn, he was Seals. And at 7, I was fascinated with John Johnson. I didn't think, though, that I could do it. I didn't believe that that was something I was supposed to do. I grew up in Chicago, and you're supposed to go, if you're a smart kid who goes to a fancy high school, which is what I did, you're supposed to, and you're good at math, you're supposed to go down to the Board of Trade and make a shitload of money before you're 50 and die by the time you're 60. That's what you're supposed to do. So I had a head start because I'd, done some of this stuff, and I knew I was pretty good at math, and I ended up, after college, being, learning how to program a little bit and being at working at Cargill Investor Services. And the reason this photo is important is because this was a day that is important to all of our lives. This is September 11th. The reason this is from the cover of the Chicago Sun-Times. What's interesting about the photo, and these are workers exiting the Sears Tower. Those are all my coworkers. I was in the Sears Tower thinking about, what is it that I want to be doing? This does not fit with me. I mean, and I'm not one of those people, and this is a public radio audience, I'm not one of those people who's like, I hate corporate America and blah, 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 blah. I'm also an economics reporter. That's not what I was thinking. I did not want to be doing the thing that I was doing. It was fun and the people were nice, but I would have stayed there and been in the Sears Tower right now. And it just didn't jive. And also, I didn't realize this until last night. It occurred to me that just about a year before that I came out. This would have been a coming out story if I had started, writing this today. Because I realized that was a part of like what was going on in my head, that I felt like I just wasn't in the right place. And it wasn't fitting my values. And the things that were happening at the office were bothering me. And I got the opportunity, which is, I would tell you, I got laid off. Which was great. I remember telling the woman who laid me off, she was crying, which it's always like, you know what? It's like, when you're receiving line at a funeral, like I'm standing in the receiving line. I'm the one who should be crying, not you. Yeah. But she was crying and I was comforting her and I said it's a black man. That's what you're supposed to do. It's going to be okay. Sure, I'm a black man out of job, but it's all about you. And I was like, this is actually the best day of my life. I said that to her. I remember looking at her in the face and saying, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. To be an e-commerce coordinator, that's not what I want to do. And I'm glad, and I will take this severance, and I will take this unemployment, and it will be awesome. And I was unemployed for a year. It took me, I applied to every journalism job, because I thought I had a budget. I had millions of dollars I supervised and stuff like that. I know how to do stuff. And then journalism was like, nah, we don't care. None of that matters. And I applied to every single job in Chicago and got turned down, and every single internship and got turned down. It turns out that I met a guy, Richard Steele. I recognized him from his voice, and he got me a job in public radio. He gave me his card. I recognized his voice at the dry cleaner. He gave me his card. And I sent in a note, and I sent in my resume, and I got back, thanks but no thanks. But the fact that he took me seriously meant something to me. And I ended up figuring all these things out around that time, because I went to an outplacement company. And all of my colleagues ended up saying to me, remember that John Johnson thing that you talk about? Remember that you had a college radio show and that you worked on the paper? All those things. This is what you should do. It was my colleagues actually who said that. They said this is what you should be doing, and that was the list. And this was my goal. This was from that year, so 2002. I wrote that down. And it was funny that this was the goal. The first one was reporter. And it took such a long time, and there's there are not a lot of black men in public radio. That is a thing. That means it's kind of hard. So a lot of stuff happened. I got to journalism, and I met this woman, and Kate is sort of this foundational person because she believed in me. And there were these moments where when I was trying, and I was 30, by the way, when I was interning. I was a 30-year-old intern. And I remember a colleague of mine, another intern, she made one of those stupid mistakes that journalists make. And Kate told two stories, and I'm going to play bits of them. Kate told two stories that really meant a lot to me. I got her on the line. And one of them was, and they shape how I think about journalism and ethics. One is the Girl Scout story, and the other is the Playboy story. These are my two guideposts for journalism. Kate Cahan's Girl Scout story. Now, I tell this story to people. I've told it dozens of times. But I decided to call Kate up to make sure that I was getting it right. And I thought that Kate was, I usually tell it that she was a teenager, but it turns out that she was a mother. So you'll hear her correct me at the beginning.
I was a young mother and a Girl Scout leader. That's the only difference, is that I don't think
Always
teenagers
an
would be
editor.
put in the position that I'm going to describe. And I was with a friend, another mother, who went to training to be Girl Scout leaders. And part of the training was they really tried to sober us and tell us the huge responsibility we were taking on by saying, yeah, I'm going to pile a bunch of little girls in a van and take them sledding or take them into the woods and stay with them for a weekend. And they told us about an incident where a van had gotten in a terrible crash and children died. They talked about another episode where a kid was sledding down a hill and broke her leg. And we were sober to the point of, on our way home, we thought, can we really do this? Can we take on this responsibility? Which we were taking very seriously. And so what we decided to do was to always, always, always be absolutely sure we had done everything that we could to make the kids safe. We had the permission slips, we had the medicine bags, we had all the precautions, we had numbers to call. And the bottom line was, I felt that if we had done what we could do, if something terrible happened, we could live with it, that we would be able to accept it. And I think, if I remember right, that's what I was trying to convey to the reporter, that you can live with it. You weren't careless. You weren't cavalier with the information people gave you. And that's why I think that incident maybe stuck with you, is the part about taking care with other people's lives and their knowledge and their stories is a big part of this. And you might make a mistake, and we all do, but you can live with yourself and you don't have to slink away from the whole profession.
And what that tells me, and I think about this all the time, is people go into situations and you just are so worried. I'm the one reporter here. How do I know that this is going to be right? Or where you're in the situation where none of these other idiots is asking the question, should I be asking that question? There are so many perilous things. You're talking to people's personal information. You're trying to navigate relationships with corporations that underrate. There's all these weird things that are going on. But the real core is just follow the Girl Scout manual. Just do what you're supposed to do. Call the guy, ask the name, never take the shortcut. When you make the small decisions, it's the small little things that make a difference. When you come to the big ethical decisions, those aren't really that hard. It's the little things that sort of build a current. And one of the things that we're afraid of in journalism a lot is ever talking about or being mortified of mistakes. And I think that one of the things that this tells us is that you are human and you will fail. And let me pick back up with Kate.
Because we will make mistakes. Because I think the idea that you cannot make a mistake is a very freezing and chilling code, if that's the word you're using, to apply on yourself. I think it's better to assume that you're human and put your code in the column of trying to do the very best you can for everybody involved, and put your energy there rather than making sure you're perfect.
Think about that. If you're an artist, and people think ethics are only lawyers and doctors and things like that. But if you're an artist, think about that. Is what's best, not just for this piece of art, but is this making everyone else better? That's a part of what we're doing. Is it just for that thing, or are we all being made more whole? The other story is the Playboy story. And it is the second half of the story because Kate was applying she was in college, and the Playboy clubs were big at the time, and the Patty Hearst kidnappings were also very big at the time. And Kate and her college newspaper team thought, oh, we got a young blonde here, we'll send her down to do an expose of Playboy. That was all the rage in journalism at the time, especially if you were in Chicago. And the key is that the photographer, the guy that took her picture, was related to the Hefners.
And so I went through the process, and afterwards, my photographer, who happened to be a family member of the Hefner family, was very charming, and I said to him, so how'd I do? How'd I stack up? And he, stack up, poor choice of word, but anyway, and he was very sweet. He just kind of looked at me and laughed, and he said, you have really pretty eyes. But then he told me who he was.
So this is important because, and then Playboy flipped out. So they flipped out, they called their home, they told her, you can't use any of this stuff, you can't do this, you can't do that, how dare you, they're kidnapping people, what kind of integrity do you have? This is a tactic of PR people to try to call journalists, try to make you feel like crap. And they're just you're terrible, I can't believe this, you misrepresented yourself, blah, 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 blah. Now, Kate had a roommate who was not a journalist, and she goes home, and now Kate, by the way, who is a crier, she's the toughest person I've ever known, but we nicknamed her Kate the Coroner. But she's also at the same time a crier, and I can imagine her just like this, the tears coming down her face. And her roommate said this to her.
And my roommate at the time, who was known for her toughness, but in this case really came through for me, said, I don't know, but I gotta say, if you're acting like this, maybe you're just not tough enough for the profession of journalism. If you're gonna fall apart every time somebody criticizes you, and anytime somebody says, don't do the story. And that always stayed with me, that she was not anywhere near involved with journalism, but she sort of cut through it and bolstered me and made me think, yeah, if I'm going to take on these things where I'm trying to dig in, I better accept the consequences of people's criticism and be able to, respect it, but not be cowed.
Doing the right thing in a situation a lot of times takes courage. It takes courage to do, an immense amount of courage to do the right thing. When you're the auto reporter and everybody else is going on trips to Morocco, it's hard. That actually is a thing. There was a trip to Morocco where they drove cars in the desert. That's why I don't like car reviews, by the way. Just I'm going to throw that out there. They're not getting paid by the car companies, but anyway. But that you have to have a bit of courage. I would say the third story around this time was I had ended up doing a story with Ira Glass that he was editing, and he was editing a local news story, and it was a really complicated thing. I wish I could tell you about it, but it was a man named John H. Stroger Jr., who was the most powerful he is the most powerful black man in Illinois politics, including the president. I'm telling you this. And he had a hospital named after him while he was alive. He then had a stroke, and they took him to the hospital across the street from the hospital named after him. So Ira Glass is like, you guys should do a story about this, right? So we're doing these stories, and me and my friend Ben Calhoun, and then we're up, it was 2:00 in the morning, and he turns to us and he goes, oh, I get it. You care about what they think of you. And imagine, now Ira's not a hero of mine, but he's definitely someone that I definitely respect. And when someone like the leader in your profession looks at you and goes, you care, and it wasn't like those three stories bolster me because it reminds you that that's not why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this so that the Cook County Board Commissioners won't snarl at me. I'm not doing this so that the Volkswagen executives won't like be nice to me, like, you know, that I care about what they're doing. Like, that's not what it's about. It's because like some little lady wrote a check in Michigan to her public radio station that's who I work for. And so when you understand those things, you are in the world, you don't have to be going to a cheat sheet for what you're supposed to be. I should probably check to make sure I got this guy's name right. Like, you know, like I should probably like listen to what they have to say. This is not rocket science. This is stuff that is often innate. That doesn't mean we don't have to talk about it. That doesn't mean we don't have to puzzle over it. That doesn't mean that we don't have to go and, you know, look at the ethics manual. But at the very foundation, I'm a public radio reporter because I'm a nerd, because I don't want to be the guy being flown by General Motors to some exotic location. I just don't like that. I don't dig it. It's not me. I like the little lady writing me a check. That's why I have fun doing my job, because they connect. And when I think about all of this, I was going to play you, I didn't have time, and I know I won't. This story, it's my mom, which is, she worked for Ford for 32 years, and she ended up suing the company. And she ended up having to sue them multiple times. And I often think of I will never forget Dorothy Glinton, Cassandra Smith et al. Versus Ford Motor Company. And the other thing about ethics is that you got to move the ball forward. You got to move the needle a little bit. It's not enough to not do things right or not do things wrong. You have to be affirmatively making the world better. Like, am I affirmatively making the world better with my actions? Like, that is a really easy thing to remember. But, you know, this is all about choosing. There is no sorting hat that you'll decide which hat you're going to get in. I like Harry Potter. And I was thinking about this because I just saw the movie. And again, I've seen all the movies. I read all the books. Listened to all the audiobooks. I'm a nerd. But you have to decide. It's the decision each day. But there's no moment. The hat doesn't hop on your head and say, you're in Slytherin, or you're in Hufflepuff, or you're in... You decide. And I want us all to go away as creative people, as people who care about the world, who care about the art or the commerce that we're making. I want us to make a choice. I want us to think about it. I want us to listen to that still, small voice within us that tells us what we should do. We should kind of follow the rules. We should have courage of our convictions and enough courage to help out another person, to not leave people stranded, to not only look at the product at the end as being all important. That if we have a choice, let's choose. Like, let's be Gryffindor. Like, that's all. I mean, like, you don't have to, it's not that hard. Like, just let's choose to be Gryffindor. Like, do I want to be like sneaky? No, I'm going to be courageous. Like, those are like it's easy. Like you don't have to think that hard. Like, think about it. Just be Gryffindor. Like, we'll all just be Gryffindor. And, because what we need in the world is we need people with courage, and we need people to stand up. And that's what it's about. And it's courage, whether you're a journalist or an artist or a doctor, you need to have courage. You need to sometimes say, you know, one of my favorite moments of courage, I was one of the first, and I'll leave you here. I remember years ago, we were going to do a story. People were talking about doing a story about the funny names of the children of political candidates. And I was in the room, and I thought, that is a terrible idea. And I watched this story like pick up legs and start to run. And like people were like, oh yeah, so we could talk to this expert about blah, 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 and so. And like, I was like brand new. I just new at NPR. I couldn't be the like pardon me? And then the black guy has to like tell the people about the name thing. And so I had to say, I didn't raise my hand, but I was like, hey guys, as the president of the Funny Name Club, and everyone started laughing, and the story died almost immediately. And that little bit, I'm so glad that I killed that story. I'm so glad. I hate it when people do the name thing. I don't have an NPR name, I have a Nigerian name. Don't tell me that. There was never a Sonari here before. Anyway, speaking of Sonari, that is my name. Sonari is my hashtag on Twitter. Sonari1 on Instagram, where I post cool photos of cars and cakes and things like that. Cars and cakes in Los Angeles. So if you love LA like I do, if you love cakes, and occasionally, there'll be a picture of Susan Stamberg or something like that. All right, thanks, guys.